Welcome to the Pardon My Art podcast, your window into the world of contemporary art and its creators, with me, your host, Oscar Castro. This show is all about the artist. Our podcast features creatives doing amazing things in the art world and across a wide range of artistic mediums to help inspire other artists to reach their full creative potential. Today's guest is Oluwafemi, a rhythmist and DJ based in Philadelphia, originally from Lagos, Nigeria. As a well-known DJ, his unique blend of classic rhythms, soul, and funk with world fusions creates an electric combination that brings high-energy excitement to audiences across the United States, Africa, and Europe. This is combined with over 15 years of experience in music and visual art. Femi has worked as a graphic designer, muralist, video jockey, and music producer, with musical influences including Nigerian legends such as Ebenezer Obey, King Sunny Ade, and Fela Kuti. Through his African-inspired musical style and visual explorations, his rhythmic evolution of repetition is woven into a unique creative tapestry and a captivating experience for his audience. Let's dive into the conversation. Welcome, Brother Femi, to the Pardon My Art podcast. How are you doing today?
Yo, I'm happy to be here. You know, I'm well fed. I just finished dinner. So life is, a full stomach. Very thankful.
Nice. Well, to start out the show, I ask my guests all the time, how do you define yourself as an artist? And I know you do a lot, so that may be a complicated question, but how do you define yourself as an artist?
The description I enjoy the most is that I'm a rhythmist. I am someone that is enamored by patterns, moved by patterns, and that works within the framework of patterns and repetition. So far, my practice is musical, it's sonic, and it's musical, it's visual, still and video. And yeah, that's the best description I can come up with.
So being a rhythmist, and being like I see you as a Renaissance person who has their hands and fingers into a lot of different creative mediums, and creative networks where you mix it up with all kinds of people steeped in those networks, in those spaces. Right. How did you get into art to begin with? What was the first love, if you will, or the first thing that you did that fashioned your brain to say, I'm a creative person, I'm an artist?
When I was 20 years old in the year 2000, I remember I was going to Rutgers at the time. I really wanted to, I was curious about rapping. I was curious about spitting. And this woman I was working with at this restaurant, got me a bunch of programs on the DVD, and one of them was Fruity Loops, the beat making joint, right? And so the day I opened it, I sat with it for like 18 hours straight, and that was the aha moment. It was like, yo, I'm a creator. Like out of nothing, I just made something. You know what I mean?
Nice.
And somehow, like shortly after that thought was also the thought that like I had been shielded from this realization my whole life. So it kind of imbued this like sense of self-discovery in my practice. Since that moment, it's just like my excuse for any experiment or jumping into anything is that it's going to help me find myself, So yeah, at age 20, messing with Fruity Loops, that was the intro. And I did that for 6 years, like straight. kind of self-taught, kind of like moving through the New Brunswick hip hop scene at the time, like with a lot of other people at my level that were just like, making beats and toying around with that and like putting people on. And then, I moved to Philly and, there's a kind of longer story that brought me here, but like I was at Temple and I met another producer who was also a DJ. And then that's kind of, like where that started. But then also with DJing came like making flyers, which my man Oscar knows a bit about.
I know a little bit about that.
Right. So I did that, and that kind of started my visual journey, like messing around with that. And then slowly it went from like digital design work to drawing, and then doing that for a while, and then hopped into like video, like VJing and like basic animation and that kind of stuff. And then I feel like since then, I've just been like working my way through these like media that I've been fortunate to come across. And it was really recently as like 3 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, that while applying for this grant, this was like the November of COVID. So like October, November of 2020. And like my experience with COVID was that once the lockdown happened, it gave me this freedom that I didn't have before to like work on some random shit. Like I could make a few beats, I could do some video stuff, I could mess around, I could really play. And that year was also important in the history of digital art, because digital art became like a huge thing. And so it really just, the energy was such like a strong, like pivoting, like, searching oneself again, having the space to do that. Like, and I started to step away from the old Femi that was very focused on each practice. Like, all right, how am I doing in DJing? And then like, how am I doing in beat making? And how and thinking, well, you have all these things inside of you. What ties all of them together? Like, what's the driving, what's at the root of all of it? Right. And so like, there's we can go on forever, but there's this like side story to it where I hadn't been back to Nigeria for 18 years, right? Like
I was going to ask you about that.
I hadn't been back for like 18 years, and it's like the last time I visited was 2000, and then I got to go in 2018. In those 18 years, I had learned so much more about like Black history and Black culture, right? And where like people, how I shared, common ancestry with all these people whose work I had grown up on, right? And like imagining that these people were so different from me. And then eventually being like, oh no, with the history, these are your cousins. These are, you know what I mean? Like y'all share the same great grandparents. So, after 18 years, I visited home in March 18 after Black Panther had just dropped, bro. So I went home, bro. I had new eyes. I went home. I got off the plane. I had new eyes, man. And like simultaneously still being so familiar, right? Like this is home, but now I know so much more. And what I noticed on that trip is that rhythm is our vibranium.
Mm.
Rhythm
Mm.
is our superpower.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so
That's real.
it's so like rhythm as like deep understanding of the workings of time. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? So like you
Mm-hmm.
think of our
Mm-hmm.
languages, you think of our music, you think of our clothing, you think of like um, things like how people got a special kind of walk, how people like there's a time in how you dap somebody up. There's like a thing
Mm-hmm. Right.
where like uh, there's a superior understanding of rhythm culturally. Like I haven't done the full research to claim that it's magically in our DNA, but I have overwhelming evidence.
I mean, your art, in my opinion, your visual art, I would say particularly, but I know from like having listened to World Town and all the
Right,
things that you do, even the way you piece together sets, when you DJ, like there's a rhythm, there's a conscious rhythm, and I would say there's an innateness to it too. Like there's a natural flow, if you will, and I think it's a human thing. But I think we also know that if humanity started in Africa, then it's an African thing,
right,
right?
right, right.
So like just the way you move with colors, the way you move with shapes is, I think, akin to the way you move with sound,
Thank you.
and in that context of rhythm. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's nice to hear you piece it together in that
Right,
culture way, because that's how it comes across.
right, right. And so there's a part of me that can almost uh, see it easily by looking at Yoruba culture, right? And being like, yo, this is
Mm,
what Yoruba language is like. There's so many words that have repeated syllables. There's actually this like desire by people to alliterate and to like rhyme things because that's sweeter to the ear than just like regular language, right? And they do that with different
mm,
sounds. They do that with how they punctuate their sentences, right? Um, the clothing just speaks for itself completely, right?
mm, mm,
Um,
mm,
and and the drum,
mm,
right? You listen to if you've ever had the opportunity to hear like people of Yoruba religion, right? Like speaking from speaking or reciting an Udu. It's not like hearing, someone in the Catholic Church reading the Bible. Even though
mm,
the truth is they both have rhythm to them. There is a,
mm,
like it's not that
mm,
one's lacking rhythm, but one is referring to rhythm as like a part of its identity. One
mm,
of them is saying like, I'm going to
mm,
say this and it's going to sound syncopated in such a way that like
mm,
it's going to refer directly to the drum in a very interesting way.
mm,
So, um, growing up in that culture, like many of these things that I described are just like what everyone does. It's not just like, it's not only people who claim to practice art. Everyone like wears, speaks the languages, loves to dance, loves to sing, loves to like wear the clothes. You know what I mean? Like this is just what everyone does.
mm,
And I often, I know in my heart that's where like my 10,000 hours really came from, was that just
mm.
like, you know, art as just a part of life. Um, I'm totally convinced that everyone is an artist and people have varying levels of practice,
Mhm.
you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, and I definitely come from a culture where, like, for I'm actually still in my feelings. I went to my homie's wedding this weekend in Houston. It was 450 Nigerians in the room, bro. Like,
Oh, nice. That must have felt really
oh my
nice.
god,
Yeah.
dude! It just like takes me back. It's like everyone. There was such a show of like color and just like vibrancy and just like style and just like a, it was simultaneously like unifying, but everyone had like an individual like spice to what they were to how they came out. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they had like colors, right? It was a 2 day wedding. For the first day it was silver. For the second day it was burnt orange, and like a lot of, say like 40% of the people like paid attention to the color, and then everyone else
Mm-hmm.
was just like in groups. You could tell like, this one family got their fabric together at the same time, you know what I mean? Like, and they would come out and people would have like different style dresses and different hats and different, you know what I mean? It's this very
Nice.
like
Mm.
innate reflection of what the universe is like, where
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
are grouped, but they still have individuality. And there's this like simultaneous pull between like unification and singularity and predictability and unpredictability. This is like anything you look at has this sort of like uh, type of repetitive like DNA. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'm obsessed with how this is
Mm-hmm. Mm.
present in the universe and how this is present in everything. So it's not like anything I touch is not going to have it. And I have to be
Right.
conscious
Right.
of like what I intend to reflect, because all of it is amusing and all of it is like, you know, like abstractable and like fractal. Like
Mm-hmm.
you like reduce it, but it still reminds you of it. And like, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
um so yeah, man, just there's the there's the undeniable impact of African culture. And then there's growing up in hip hop, which is like um I think with hip hop comes this like unspoken and sometimes spoken by some people who like have those kind of roots idea that you are God too. Everybody's God body. So like tap into that and produce what you got to produce. It just so happens that it also has roots in the drum, right? And so there's something about rhythm that's like embedded in all the hip hop expressions. There's something about playing around with ideas of syncopation and like doing things on and off the beat. The beat is the most important thing. You know what I mean? So, um, growing up in that, as a young man, like uh, hip hop was the music of my time. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it really was. And like being a kid in Nigeria, like that's what cousins and the like were bringing back from the UK and from the US was like hip hop music, dance hall music. You know,
Mm.
so make no mistake, when you're listening to Afro beats these days, like it's a
Right.
direct impact of um, of those influences from the UK and the US, which ironically
Mm-hmm.
come from us.
Right. It's like this weird circle of life, right? Like it comes from Africa, goes through the diaspora, like through a filtration process, kind of, I guess, right? And then it just gets cycled back to
Right.
Africa where they pick it up and say, "Oh, let's do this
Right.
with it." That's
Right.
amazing. I never looked at it
Right.
that way.
And
Wow.
this is not the first time. It's a continuous cycle. So there are people like Orchestra Baobab, this band that has been around since the 60s, who were mixing Senegalese music, who are Senegalese artists playing Senegalese music inspired by Cuban music. It's just like, you
Fascinating.
know what I mean? Not to
Hmm.
mention, like, the funk era was like coincides with the time where Babatunde Olatunji and those types of like uh, academic, you know, Yoruba musicians were coming here and teaching folks the groove. And so you hear like Last Poets, you hear Curtis Mayfield, you hear all these people
Hmm.
incorporate, rhythms from the motherland, as like a part of their identity, as part of their like, in order for us to be who we are, we got to go back to the roots. So this shit is
Hmm.
continuous. And then like as stuff is happening here, we're picking it back, until most recently, we were picking stuff up and like embedding it in our culture. So you had Nigerians making modern, or contemporary music, which was just stuff that was
Hmm.
in the likeness of what they heard. I was laughing the other day
Hmm.
with my homie at the wedding, actually, that there was this artist called Blackie when I was coming up, and he was the Shaba like slash Super Cat like prototype in Nigeria.
In
And
Nigeria.
his
Wow.
hit song was Sugar Stick, and it was raunchy as fuck. And like, all the grandmas are like, "What's that devil music?" And then I'm like, "Listen to Afro beats now, bro. It's all Sugar Stick." Like, you know what I mean? Um, but yeah, I love that. I love that is this history. This like cyclical history has been pretty vibrant. You know,
Yeah.
from time
You've
from a
been
long time.
you've been a big part of like making it. I want to go back to World Town, the World Town sound. Like you're a founder of World
Right.
Town, and how like you know I've worked with bands before. I've always wanted to have my own band. I'm working on that. I'm working on that. But um, but there you go and do it. And like while you're doing all these other things, so like talk about the creation of this force of sound and music and how that like what did that do for you to do that and how has it been working for you in all your other things.
I'll be frank. We started World Town as a party, as a DJ party, and
Hmm.
all the credit really goes to Ben Arsenal for putting the band together. And I think in the
Hmm.
beginning, I'm not. I won't claim like a direct influence on the music, but I sat in on a lot of the rehearsals, and like we
Hmm.
um, we worked somewhat together. But I think Ben really took the lead as far as like putting the band together. The party
Hmm.
came from a desire to just a connection. Once I met Ben, we kind of like connected musically, and that was just
Hmm.
dope. Um, but after like the first couple of times we spun together, we realized like, oh, we are um, we have this unique taste where we love music from around the globe, and then it also
Hmm.
matches the kind of people we roll with. So I remember there's a picture from the first day I met Ben that's still floating around. And there's probably people from like 20 different countries in the picture. And this is just how we all, you know what I mean?
Right,
So
right.
his sound was more electronic, like, like, uh, and mine was very like funk slash hip hop slash like soca, you know. So it was a really beautiful, like slow coming together and like mixing of ideas and having a dance floor to work that through, you know, while like
Mm-hmm.
in a very weird way, like being at the beginning of a new house music wave that was happening, right? Because it's
Yeah.
like around the time we were getting together, like Black Coffee's music was getting more international. Like all these other producers, like Baracas from Sistema, like all these people from Brazil doing like dope, music out of the like Baile Funky out of the favelas. Like all that kind of music was becoming more prevalent. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, I can't say that I, I can't say that I saw that ahead of time. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's just kind of something that like came together, you know. And since then, it's been just more of an African presence in that type of music. So I feel really fortunate to have like the space. But yeah, World Town from the rip was just, you know, we would look out to the dance floor and there would be people from all around the globe, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
even though
Mm-hmm.
part of the name really comes from the music, part of the name comes from the music, it really comes from the kind of space we were trying to like make, which was to have a space where you run into anybody from anywhere, you know, from any group in the city, like, you know, for the sake of just celebrating that we can
Mm-hmm.
do that, you know. And that's like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was always a big deal for me coming from another country, right? Like my experience was uh it was my experience that I met people from everywhere, from, you know,
Mm.
all sorts of backgrounds, all sorts of like places in the world, you know. Um, and I know in my heart that we're all similar and different, like in a very simple, logical way. Me and any other person
Right.
have similarities and we have differences, you know.
Right.
Um, and, you know, I learned time and time again to just like be patient and listen. And like I would learn something new about them and learn something new about myself. You know, who knew I like sushi? Who knew, bro? I never had raw fish a day in my life, and then it was like, oh shit! And by the way, you know,
Right. Mm-hmm.
all these
Mm-hmm.
other things that are like crazy. For instance, the Japanese language. Um, in the Japanese language, most words end with vowels or an N, and it's the same with Yoruba.
Did you know you could be putting oil and chemicals in your coffee? I love coffee creamer, but until recently I hadn't ever turned the bottle around to actually see what's inside. When I did, I found out many of my favorite creamers contain ingredients I would never intentionally add to my coffee cup, like canola oil, dipotassium phosphate, and artificial flavors. Layered superfood creamers are crafted from the highest quality, all natural, real food ingredients because all layered products are sustainably sourced and thoroughly tested to ensure that you're incorporating the cleanest, finest fuel into your routine. Layered superfood creamers contain naturally occurring MCTs from coconut oil, but they have no artificial flavors, colors, or additives. And something really important to me is that there is no sugar from highly refined corn syrup. Are you ready to feel more energized, focused, and supported? Go to lairdsuperfood.com and add nourishing plant-based foods to fuel you from sunrise to sunset. Use our promo code PardonMyArt at checkout to save 15% off of your purchase today. Think there's a ancestral phonetic connection there going on or something like
Who knows? It's also not far fetched that people like uh, come to the same conclusions, right, through different experiences.
Mm.
I think
Right,
it's just a
right.
beautiful thing to be like, yo, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
um, here are some certain similarities, and like, uh, I feel like some of the more important characteristics of humans that arrive from our experiences are the same across the board. It's just like
Mm-hmm.
there's different cultural experiences that shape, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like that shape
Mm-hmm.
who each person is or what each group like feels, there's like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, World Town is
Yeah, yeah.
World Town is just kind of that energy for me, where it's like, everybody can come here, bro, you know, and I can be who I am, um, and we can work through this music that's like very dance positive, like, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And we
Mm-hmm.
can all bust a sweat together. And I really love Ben Arsenal, man.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, I think he carries a lot of that energy too. That's just like, you know, it's based in love, and also takes seriously the fact that it's a unique space, or let me not say unique, um, but it's a particular kind of space, and
Mm-hmm. It's high
right,
vibration. I mean,
right,
I think that again, like back to why I'm listening to everything you're saying is because I see you vibrating at a very high level. I mean, I think we're all vibrating,
right,
right? And I think creative people tend, in my mind, in my opinion, tend to vibrate at higher frequencies and, varying frequencies, of course, too. Kind of like if you've ever seen them play with sound and they put like salt or
right,
sand
right,
on one of
right,
those
right, right,
things, and you change the frequency and the form
right,
changes,
right,
right? But it's still sound. The common denominator is there's a frequency, there's a sound, or whatever
right.
have you, but the difference, right? And the difference makes the different formations. And I feel like whether you're emoting through paint, whether you're emoting through music, whether you're emoting through going to a homeboy's wedding and getting like kitted out, like like putting all like coming out there colorful and fly, right? Or when I was a kid, going to the uh, we called it Clementon Park, like the amusement park. We would, as a high schooler, you know, in the summertime, where were the girls, right? Or where were the boys, right? Okay, cool. Well, when we got there, we knew we had to be fly. So whatever was the fashion of the day, we had to, even as poor as we had to try and figure out how to compensate because everybody else was coming
Right,
fly,
right,
and
right,
so like I mean I think that's the creative energy of
right,
culture, um, that I see when people are vibrating, even if they're not necessarily creative people or see themselves as like artists or what have
right,
you. But when we dive into those things, we're vibrating at a high rate because we're being
right,
creators,
right,
and
right,
some of us emote that even more when we're
right.
DJing or making murals and the shit you do. So
Yeah, man. Yeah, you're right about that. I can't deny it. I think it's awesome to see the the aspect of it where art is a part of people's culture, and
mm,
people have creative moments every day. And so you can say like,
mm,
you know, like one of the lunch ladies always wears this thing. Like, this is her thing. This is her vibe. This is her look. And it's like one thing I remember. Um, I'm a sneakerhead in the sense that I love to wear sneakers. Not that I love to buy expensive sneakers. Just I like won't wear anything else but sneakers. Right. And so when I first and I not detested, I was kind of like half immune from like regular sneaker culture. One, because I just didn't have the bread to be buying like crazy sneakers all the time. But I was like, I can enjoy
Mm-hmm.
this, you know, in the sense that there's always a billion types of sneakers to choose from. So like the ones you
Mm-hmm.
pick say a lot about who you are and what your style is. And like I was always like deep into that. And when I moved to Philly, literally everybody was on that wave. Like if I took the
Mm-hmm.
train, everybody, it'd be a nurse. It'd be like, you know, the dude in the fucking bodega, bro. And they would step out and you'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
damn. I remember one day my math professor had these brown on brown dunks, and I was like, what? Like, what are you doing? Like, I asked him about him. He's like, my daughter gave them to me. I was like, damn right. Like, it's great
Mm-hmm.
taste you got there, you know? And so, yeah, I love that because it reminds me that, like, the thing that I feel that makes me want to create is real. Like, it's, it's definitely there. There's no doubt
Mm-hmm.
about that. Right? And so that the rest of it is just my responsibility to stoke that fire if I need to. If I need to cook,
Mm-hmm.
I got to stoke that fire and like
Yeah.
make it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Um, and there's something kind of comforting in just like the reality of it, of that itself. It's that look, you have this fire inside you.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone does, you know, and everyone stokes it differently. Like some people may not practice the way you practice, but like everyone's got like their own little thing that they're doing. So you take it as
Right.
you know, like everyone makes, you know, not everyone, but like many of us make food every day because we got to eat it. And then some people are like, I'm gonna do this in a million different ways, you know, and I'm gonna like dig deep into this and make this and throw myself into this thing, you know. And we go to those
Yeah.
people and call them chefs. And we go to them, when you know, when we want a special experience, we go to them. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just feel like comfortable in that fact. Like, you know, this is gonna go as far as I choose to stoke it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and this is gonna be as much as I
Mm-hmm.
give to it.
Well, on that note, how do you see, given where you've come from and where you are now, what's your like your creative professional trajectory? Like, what are your goal sets on in terms of your creative expression? And I'm sure it's going to be in the context of a rhythmist,
Right.
but what how do you see yourself moving as you age? Because we all do, right? As an artist, going through this world of creating art um,
Um,
and feeding the people's culture and soul. Yeah.
that's a good question. Um, I think that until now, I've been on this journey to like align my like daily life with what I think like my work life or practice life is. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
I I'm very interested in keeping the original curiosity, you know, and the kind of freedom of that got me here, while continuing to hone the skill of sharing with people, you know, because I just think that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
change. Like, there's this part of me that's in my head trying out ideas at different scales, you know, um, and then there's this part of me that's engaging people, whether it's at the DJ party or at the art show or, you know, wherever an installation could be or a mural goes up. But this is like a continuous process where the media can change, right? But it's as long as I stay true to like what my roots are in this thing, like there'll be a way for me to express myself, you know. And so I like to play. I like to feel like I'm playing around with things, and that's the energy I like to feel like my practice is moving with, and and I want the expressions to embody that, but like the whole process, to kind of feed that well. And I feel like I'm still growing in terms of understanding what that's like,
Yeah.
One interesting spin or one interesting perspective is that the first 6 years when I was making music, I was very confused about selling beats. Because on the one hand, I wanted money. Right.
Right.
And on the second hand, like, I didn't really just want to work with anyone. But I was also starting out, and like I wanted my work to be better. I wanted the beats to sound better, and I wanted to be able to just like live in the moment of like having an interesting idea and then going and trying to put it down and like whatever. And there were a lot of like not cool stories coming out of the industry at the time, like. A&R's collecting somebody's CD, and then like the beat appears in an artist's song, like someone copies the beat, but like just changes one thing, whatever, and then like the broke producer doesn't even have money for the lawyer. Talk less of like whatever. There's like all these crazy stories, and like there was some predatory like energy around the scene. And I just wasn't ready. So I never, I was really confused about like where I was headed as far as like making money from it. And then I found DJing, and DJing was like kind of like a good entry point to be like, oh, all right, I can make some money. And then I found graphic design, and it's like, okay, I can make some money. And then like I've worked really up till COVID. I was out there in them streets doing it all. Fortunate at some point in the journey to like at least have the discernment to think about people I wanted to work with more, or things I wanted to support, because it wasn't immediately apparent that I could be supporting an organization I want and still be getting paid. Like that's a possibility. I could be working with people I want to and still be getting paid. And so, yeah, like up till 2020 March, I was out there hustling, and like I think I had a lot of good situations for some of the jobs that I considered to be just like strictly client work. It's like people being like, look, we appreciate your style. We want you to bring your style here, or like you can spin whatever you want in this space, like that type of shit. But I was definitely burning a lot of energy, like DJing and like doing private things and like committing time to other people's work. And it wasn't until all the DJ gigs got canceled.
Yeah.
All of them, bro. Not a single one remained. I mean, I did some like Zoom parties, but like it was definitely not. And yeah, it was very.
Wow.
I feel really fortunate, honestly, that I've always had work, you know, to some extent,
Mm-hmm.
but also always had space for independent development and practice. And like things like World Town are just both, you know, for such a long time. It's like,
Right.
yo, it's work, but it's your shit. So, you know what I
Right.
mean? What you say
Right.
goes. Um, but even World Town was such a bubble of its on its own that I had to consider the independent work that I was doing outside of it. You know, we started
Mm-hmm.
in 2011.
Yeah, that's a long
It's a
run.
long run. So, like,
Yeah.
you know, we the art that I made for it had to speak to the energy of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and honestly, I was still I was still like just a few years into drawing when we started World Town. So like I
Wow.
was I was drawing on the side basically,
Mm-hmm.
and slowly like putting my stuff into spaces whenever I got like a little opportunity. But you know
Mm-hmm.
that work kept growing until like 5 years ago when I started to show a lot more of it and do bigger
Yeah.
projects, right? So, you know, there's this arc, you know, to answer the original question that has been like honoring the independent practice, and this other
Mm-hmm.
arc that has been, uh, you know, a combination of how I engage with people or what's happening transactionally, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking to continue to, you know, intersect them as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, that's on the one side, and then on the other end, I want to make more video art, you know, like and make more music and pair the
Yeah.
two,
You're speaking my
right?
language. Yeah, I hear you loud and clear.
It's you know
Yeah.
those two things are really important, and I'm beginning to see how like there are a bunch of different stages between the still work and the video work, you know, that
Mm-hmm.
allow for different things to be created, you know. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
excited to
Mm-hmm.
continue to explore that. I think that's just kind of
Well, here's a question for you related to as a digital artist.
right,
As a graphic artist, um, there's this whole like Web3 thing going on, and the
right,
metaverse. All of the virtual worlds that will, I guess, ultimately be created, and the I guess the portals to get into those worlds. I'm on Spatial. I don't use it much, but I have a couple of different rooms in Spatial. I've been able to like set up a gallery
right.
where I put my digital art. But I know it's not the end. It's really just the beginning. And what are you imagining digital artists and graphic
I'm
artists are going to
imagining.
be able to
I'm
do?
personally working towards a Femi city. That's just
Nice,
like a
nice,
city of my work.
nice,
You know,
nice, nice.
like or as like wild as I can think of, virtual like museum, and I use museum, you know, very very lightly. Like it could literally be a spaceship
Mm-hmm.
on top of a monkey that has,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right, right, right.
It's like whatever. So that's where my head is, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the technology is only getting better and easier to
Mm-hmm.
access,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
and with like, yeah, with, things like Touch Designer, things like Unreal Engine, you know, with like the ridiculous capability of like AI help. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's so many ways to, you know, I think about how futuristic dial-up was when we were rocking it.
Right.
We were
Yeah.
like, yo, this machine is making all this noise and now on the internet. What? So when I'm seeing these things creep up, I'm like, oh yeah, I can see like 10 years down the line, or like 5 years down the line. Like, you stay with the tools, it's only going to become easier, but it makes it important for me to continue to stay grounded in my personal practice and, like, you know, the things that I'm working on and creating, the ideas that I'm messing with, because it's like, oh, like there's going to be room for them, you know. And that's how I felt in 2020 when Beeple sold his shit for 63 million. I was like, nigga, you've been making shit on your computer for like 12 years. What? Like, you've been making computer shit forever, bro. And like, the funny thing was, I was speaking to one of my homies who's like a seasoned muralist. This man has done behemoth murals all around the country and world, right? And like, I was like, bro, you know, what's up with digital art? Like, because my issue was that I could make all this stuff digitally, I would have to print it. And then when I would print it and put it up on the wall, I'd be like, it's not hitting the way I want it to hit, you know? It's not, it's like, yo, like, how can I? So I asked him. He's like, I don't know. He's like, just keep, like, you know, plugging away, basically. And then that shit happened. The news about people came out, and I was like, yo, people are keeping it? I don't gotta print that shit? Get out of here. You know, funny thing is, since then I've printed some stuff. Like, what's weird is, like, since then I found out I could print murals. I could design the shit digital, and they could print it and put it up on the wall.
Yes, that's amazing. Yes.
Or I design some shit digital and someone else paints it.
Right. That's living. That's
you know.
Isn't that Michelangelo and all those so-called other big old European artists, like they got really good at what they could do, and then they said, okay, I'm going to put my name on it, but I'm going to get a team of people to do it for me. So.
And it's crazy, like, you know, unlike Michelangelo, them people could be getting paid more money than me in some cases because of how long they're working on it. But I didn't. Like, the one time that there's a mural I have in West Philly that there were mural arts. Like, some of my favorite painters were on that joint. You know what I mean? And like, it was, I couldn't have spent that time painting. I was working on, actually I was doing another painting at the time at the airport. That was much smaller, and I was like, yo, I can't do both. Like, you know what I mean? Right. So, it's really interesting how, like, some of those things that I thought were barriers are not anymore. You know, and it's like, it's made me really refocus on how the computer could be, like, kind of like the final processor, or like the final filter of my ideas that I can make physically, or by taking photos, or by doing other things and importing them into the computer. And as long as I continue to improve on my process of, like, sampling these joints. Speaking of hip hop, like, I'm in the business of sampling myself. You know what I mean? That's how I look at it.
That's what's up.
I'm in the business of sampling myself. Like, that's where my art is going, or that's what my art has been. But especially, like, I've been leaning into it a lot the past 3 years since I've been thinking about being a rhythmist, and, like, how repetition is, like, tangible in the work, but is also tangible in the process. right?
Mm-hmm.
And how, like, as a DJ, for instance, there's a repetition, like, the beats in a song, but there's also repetition, like how many times I'll play a song till I don't want to play it anymore,
Right.
or how often the song is going to be like in my midnight hour. Midnight hour,
Mm-hmm.
when the party is 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., the midnight hour is when the party's supposed to be jumping,
Mm-hmm.
and some songs might make it there for a while, and then eventually they're just like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm tired of playing this joint. And it's like,
Right.
that signifies like the end of this pattern and the beginning of another one. So to
Mm-hmm.
continue to be able to like look at my journey from these different angles and like have a recursive process of developing work. It's like I make something, it can always be sampled. Just like if I make a song now, it can be sampled in a million ways into the future.
Mm-hmm.
So like
Mm-hmm.
that's how I hope to uh, that's how I hope to develop my future work. Is to kind of like work on the like mini verse of my stuff.
Mm. Well, with the time we have left, brother, could you give one clear insight from your years of toiling through this creative industry to like emerging artists? And again, I often frame emerging artists as it could be anything from that 5-year-old who's playing with the Play-Doh to an 80-year-old who's walking into a senior center and discovering for the first time that they like to paint. But like, what could you share that might be universally applicable to anybody who sees themselves as an artist who wants to step out there, who, as a creative person who wants to step out there as an artist?
Um, I'll take a slice from soccer. If you don't shoot, you don't score,
Mm,
and that's pretty much it.
the basic, yes.
If you don't shoot, you won't score for sure. And
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's a lesson I've learned over and over again. If you don't try
Mm-hmm,
it, you won't know. If you don't do it enough
mm-hmm.
times, you won't get better. If you don't put yourself out there, nobody will know who you are. If
Dig
you
it.
don't have, you know what I mean? Like if you don't task yourself to make the work, you won't have anything to show.
Right.
And it's, you know, I feel like there's a part of me that's like wincing, the 13-year-old kid wincing at his dad when his dad's like, go study. If you don't study, you're never going to be anything if you don't study. And I'm
Mm-hmm,
like, oh, yeah, it's the same advice, bro. If you don't,
mm-hmm,
I try to
mm-hmm.
draw every day.
That's good to know.
Like,
Yeah.
even if it's just a little something. Because I find that 75% of the time, like I come away with a new thought. Like, oh man, that thing, oh, could be different. Or it could be like this. Blah, blah, blah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And um, that and yeah, I think that's it. Like,
Yeah.
and a lot of people in Philly have been really good examples. Just like, you it's important that you do the thing. If you don't do the thing, you won't know how to move. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
half the shit you learn is just from doing it.
Yeah. That's been my experience.
Right.
And I agree. I mean, I think it took me a while to get to starting this podcast. This is season 2,
Right.
so I'm like, I'm building up for future seasons, but I had to
Congratulations.
get season 1. Thank you. Yeah, 10 episodes thinking about it in the beginning was like, oh, I can do that. Oh man, especially when you're, mostly doing it yourself, right? So, like trying to grow from the learning experience. But I wouldn't be here talking to you if I didn't have that very first idea that then turned into an action point of maybe doing some research, and then, oh, okay, cool. So let me now figure out what my platform's going to be. Okay, cool. And then making some decisions and spending some
Right,
money and buying a
right,
microphone,
right,
and
right.
like investing in the thing to the point where it's like, okay, I got all these things now. I can't not do it, right? So I have to do it, and so I still had to do
Right.
it, right? So, but yeah, and I took my shot, and uh, but that's with everything I've ever done. Honestly, I think it's
It
that way.
really, like,
If I don't,
and I've remembered drawing is actually the anchor for me because, like,
mm,
when we were kids, we would like do little sketches from the comic books and whatnot, right? And then,
mm-hmm,
like, as I grew older, that kind of dissipated. And then when I got back into it, there was a very before I got back into it, there are very real memories I have of looking at something and being like, I would love to draw that, but then I don't. Until
yeah,
I was like, you gotta draw, And then that's
mm-hmm,
where I built, you know, I've continued to build on that year after year. And I have a lot of room for improvement, you know. But
mm,
at this time, I'm really proud that I can draw a lot better than I could. Like, you know, just 15 years ago, I can remember that shit. I can remember being like, nah, B, you can't do that. Like, if you want to make this graphic, you got to do it some other way.
yeah,
So, yeah, I really, that's it's one of those things. It's not up to us. That's just the truth.
mm-hmm,
You
mm-hmm,
know what I'm
mm-hmm,
saying? Like, that's just the truth.
mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm,
I don't like Trump one bit,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
but that motherfucker was in the game for like 40 years of just like in front of every camera
Yeah.
doing, you know what I mean? Like all these idiots trying to
Mm-hmm.
copy his shit don't have 5 years out. They don't know what the fuck they're doing, bro. You know what I mean? And so
Right.
you think, like, it's funny that people took him for a joke because it's like, no, this guy has years of experience. You used to see him in the
Mm-hmm.
80s
Mm-hmm.
on TV.
Mm-hmm.
This man is a superstar and he has a lot of
Mm-hmm.
experience in doing what you think he can't do. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so it's very,
Yeah.
like, I'm
Yeah.
very conscious of just like doing speaks a lot more volumes than what anyone says.
Yeah. 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 That's sound advice. So, final question. Where can people see your art?
I keep people posted on Instagram at OLWFM. That's OLWFM. And that's where I keep most people posted. I think the next thing we're doing is at the Philadelphia Museum of Art with Rashid Zakat and Little Dave. Uh,
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
man.
That's gonna be
It's
dope.
dope, dope, dope. It's like a video slash musical situation. Um, and I believe that's mid June. I'll be putting up more info about that
Mm.
soon. Um, yeah, I'm doing that, and that's the next one I'm getting ready for. You know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I really
Nice.
want to like. I really want us to do something special with that. Um, Revival has been this party we've been working on for like a few years, where we bring video and music together, um, and it's still
Mm-hmm.
definitely a work in progress. But that's the next, that's the next official situation. Um, yeah, man, we out here just working.
Nice.
We
Nice.
out here just
Nice.
working.
Well, when this drops, I'll be sure to make sure that I tag you and do all the things so that people can find
Right,
you and
right, right,
keep abreast of what you're doing. So when you're making announcements, people are looped in.
right.
And yeah, and I say to all my guests that I want people to come back. So as you're doing work in the future, I'm going to be paying attention. I'm going to say let's bring Femi back on to talk about that.
Yeah,
And
let's do it.
so like I want to
Let's
build. I
do it,
mean,
man.
my whole goal is to each one teach one and have folks learning, folks growing, folks networking.
Right,
Folks
right,
folks
right.
really being a community as the podcast world, can create that kind of a vibe. But at some point, I'd like to have like a, real life event where people can get together under the banner of this podcast,
Yeah.
but with the intention of like discussing art, making art, all of that.
Please
So
keep
so
me
stay tuned
posted. I
for
want to
that.
be a part of
Yeah,
that.
sweet,
We can
sweet.
do that for sure.
Sounds good. Well, thank you, brother. I really appreciate your time. Learn a little bit more about your
Yeah.
life,
Thank you,
and
bro. I appreciate you so much. This is so dope.
yeah, this has been so basic. So stay tuned. I hope you have a great evening, and big hugs to your family.
Yeah, I appreciate you, brother.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Pardon My Art podcast, your window into the world of contemporary art and its creators. I hope that you learned something or were inspired by something that our guests had to say. Our goal is to build one of the largest network of artists with the simple motto of each one teach one. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to my Patreon page at patreon.com/Oscar, and Oscar is spelled with a K. Well, that's all for now. Stay tuned for more interesting conversations with artists who are ready to share their amazing stories and inspire you to create your own. Always remember, art is for everyone, and anyone can do it. Be good to yourself and do great things. Are you ready to embark on a journey of personal growth and transformation? My new book, Meet Your Inner Shaman, the scientist, the doctor, the teacher, and the artist, is here to guide you. In this captivating exploration, we dive into the shamanic archetype, reimagining it through the lenses of science, medicine, education, and artistry. Join me as we delve into the world of meditation, mindfulness, and the intriguing concept of quantum consciousness, often linked to things like the enigmatic placebo effect. Together, we'll uncover how these practices can unlock your true potential and foster a profound sense of well-being. This book is more than just a guide. It's an invitation to embark on a life-changing journey. Meet Your Inner Shaman equips you with practical tools, insights, and transformative wisdom to navigate your personal growth and development. Embrace your creativity, heal your body and mind, and cultivate a profound sense of purpose. So, are you ready to meet your inner shaman and unlock the extraordinary potential within you? Get your copy of Meet Your Inner Shaman, the scientist, the doctor, the teacher, and the artist today. And let's embark on this transformative adventure together. Visit oscarcastro.com/books to learn more and order your copy. It's time to unleash your inner shaman and tap into the power of your true self. As someone who tries to live a healthy lifestyle, I know how important it is to stay hydrated, but not all hydration solutions are created equal. That's why I was excited to discover Cure, a plant-based, vegan, and no sugar-added electrolyte packet that hydrates as effectively as an IV drip. Cure Hydration is an oral rehydration solution, ORS, that contains the perfect balance of electrolytes and glucose to help your body absorb water and rehydrate quickly. The formula is made with all natural ingredients like coconut water powder and pink Himalayan salt, and it is free from artificial flavors, sweeteners, and preservatives. Cure Hydration is vegan, gluten-free, and non-GMO, making it a great option for anyone with dietary restrictions or preferences. The packets are convenient and easy to use. Just mix with water and drink. They're perfect for on-the-go, travel, or anytime you need a quick and effective hydration boost. What I really like about Cure is that they are committed to transparency and honesty. All of their ingredients are clearly listed on their website and packaging, and they are always happy to answer any questions or concerns. Are you ready to combat dehydration? Try Cure today and feel the difference for yourself. Go to curehydration.com and use promo code PardonMyArt for 20%.